Let's go.
All right. Yeah, thank you for having me out here to be able to speak to you guys about property tax appeals. Once the slide deck's up here, I'll sort of talk about company, who I am, and how to do property tax appeals and why they matter and why you should do them. Hopefully everybody walks out of here with knowing why you should do a property tax appeal on all your properties every single year. So I have some links up here if you want to connect me on LinkedIn or our website. Also at the end of the presentation, I'll have some links up there as well. So yeah, our company is LowPropTax. I basically started this company because I was being overtaxed myself, and I went to go appeal my property taxes. Originally, the county was assessing my property as if I had a two-car garage on it, but I had a large like Home Depot shed, right? And they figured that was a two-car garage, and I spotted that on my county like tax record that I had. This was in Missouri, so not California, but essentially I went to the county and I was like, hey, why are you guys taxing me on a two-car garage? I don't own one. There's not one on this property. And they're like, okay, let us drive by and let us actually make sure there's not one there. So they went and they drove by it and they took a photo. They're like, yep, okay, there's no two-car garage on it. And then they told me, yep, we can give you guys, they can give me a reduction for 1 year. And I was like, what do you mean 1 year? I've owned this property for 5 years. This was your mistake. And it was on there for like 10 years before I owned it. And I got mad. I got really mad. They were only going to give me 1 year reduction. I was like, I've owned it for 5 years and I've been paying taxes on this due to your mistake. And that basically lit a fire inside of me. And I was like, if this is happening to me, it's probably happening to other people. I don't get my money back. So for a while, for about 5 years, I did it informally, where I just went to people I knew, like investors like yourselves, and I was like, hey, let me look at your property tax cards. Let me see if there's any errors on it, stuff like that, and I'll just take a commission out of your savings, whatever. It wasn't more so for the money. It was more so because I felt other people were getting betrayed, like with what I did. And I also found other issues on my portfolio too. I had a fourplex that is in a lower income neighborhood. It only had like mini split units on it and not a central HVAC unit. But the county, they were taxing me as if it had all ductwork and a full HVAC system on it. And that was roughly $40,000 of value that they added that was non-existent. So that was another example that I went and found when I started my analysis. So today we're going to go over what is a property tax appeal, why most people overpay, how to appeal step by step. I actually printed off appeal forms, which we'll get to that. If you want to do a property tax appeal here, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do it. Even if it's your own house, an investment property, we're going to go through all that. So you can walk away tonight with a tax appeal form and submit it to the county yourself. We're going to go over what actually wins a property tax appeal, and then Q&A and basically about our company as well. So yeah, talked a little bit about who I am. I've been doing this for a while. I have some other ventures too, other companies. I've had a portfolio up to 168 units. I've done syndications, multifamily, fix and flips, wholesaling, basically. Been doing that for about the past 10 years. And then I sold off several of my properties actually to start this company that I have now because I believe in it so much. And I've taken a back step from investing actually to build this company. And my goal is to make this company nationwide and accessible to everybody with integrating in things like title companies, property management softwares, where all this stuff happens in the background and you never know, but you get a refund every year, right? So that's sort of the bigger vision with our company and what we're doing. And that's why I'm focusing only on this and why I'm so passionate about it. Also was in the military for about 8 years, so any Air Force veterans in here. So I was in the Air Force, mostly in Europe.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you for your support. So essentially, across the entire nation, every year, there's $259 billion worth of property taxes that are overpaid by people just like you. And 95% of people that know about it, they go through the property tax appeal filing process and they give up because it's so hard and bureaucratic by county governments to make it impossible basically for you to do it. Whenever we get to our tax bill forms, you're going to look at it and be like, wow, I see why. I see why I would want to give up. So essentially, what is a property tax appeal? So a tax appeal is basically where the county is assessing you at $100,000, for example, right? But you think the value is worth $80,000, and you think it's worth $80,000 because other properties in the area are less, or if you're a fix and flipper, right? You bought a property at a really good price, right, under market, and the county assessor comes back, they're like, no, it's worth 100, it's not worth 80. Or there's a lot of damage on the property, or there's factors affecting the property that it shouldn't be worth that value. Another gentleman in here brought up a case, an example of where this is a larger property, right? But someone bought the property at $6 million, and then they sold it for $3 million essentially, and they're still being taxed at that $6 million mark, right? Even though they bought it for $3 million, they're still being taxed at $6 million. You can think about this as well with like wholesaling properties and fix and flips and stuff like that, where the previous owner, maybe they overpaid on it in 2020, 21, 22 during the peak, right? They paid $1 million or $500,000, right? You bought it for half that or a quarter of that, right? But you're still going to be taxed at that higher amount unless you do something about it. So, and essentially what the county does is they do mass appraisals, right? They have this large algorithm that doesn't know individual property characteristics. It's based on the whole entire county worth of sales data. So, but we know every property is different, right? Every property has different characteristics that we know. It's not a one size fit all. And that's why you want to do those property tax appeals and educate the county, hey, my property has these issues or these things affecting it, or these comparable sales don't match up with what you're telling me it's worth. So no one walks through your home but you. County assessors don't know. They drive by, they take a photo once every 3 or 4 years, right? So they use that photo and then they use their algorithm basically to do an analysis on your property. And then errors are common. There's a lot of errors. I would say probably 2 out of 10 clients that we get, there's an error on it, whether it be square footage, bedrooms. If you're doing renovations with permits, right, there's a lot of issues. They're taxing you on things that shouldn't be on there. They have a lot of errors. It's not their fault, right? I don't want to put all the fault on county assessors. I want to put it on their technology. It's 40 years old, and it would cost billions and billions of dollars essentially to upgrade. It's kind of like upgrading the IRS tax system, where you can't do it. You know, it's too big. There's too many things that rely on it, and there's a lot of errors on it, and that's just how it is, right? That's why we started this company. So what you can do basically is you can go in and challenge that assessed value with other comparable sales, right? You can go and find comparable sales that normally we want to try to pick 3 of them at a lower value, right, if we're doing a property tax appeal. But you don't want to pick sales that are more than, for example, 20% less than what your property sold for, because you're also appealing to them. If your property is assessed at like $500,000 and you give them a $100,000 comp, they're just going to throw it out, right? It doesn't make sense. So yeah, 6 signs you might be overassessed. If you bought a property and own it now, and you bought between 2021, 2023, I guarantee you are overassessed right now. We all know the market's dropped 6 to 8% in this area and across the country, right? But you're still being taxed at that high assessed value that you bought it at. So if that's one of you in here, we can do something about that tonight and fill out these property tax appeal forms that you submit yourself. If the value went up, essentially, but you made no improvements to the property, you didn't do anything to the property, right, but the county assessor brought that tax value up, you got that tax charge, like, what's going on here? In California, we have Prop 13, which taxes can only go up about 2%, sometimes more, depending on like Mello-Roos tax, which that doesn't have to do with the county, that has to do with local developments to pay for like firefighters and stuff like that. But generally your taxes should not raise more than 1.5 to 2% per year. If they do ever do a tax appeal, something's wrong, that's where we're talking about one of those errors on the property. It should not ever raise more than that amount. Also, if you manage a bunch of properties, same thing here. In other states, it's kind of the same, but in other states also, like in Texas, they might raise your property taxes 30 or 40% in 1 year because all of the properties around you, they sold for a lot more, right? But that's a whole different jurisdiction that I'm not talking about right now. So also like climate impact. So if you own a property in Placer County somewhere, there's a wildfire, right? You're exposed, rental property or your own home, you're exposed to wildfire smoke for like 15, 20 days out of the year, do a tax appeal, right? Because your property versus another property in a different area is not exposed to that, why are you paying the same tax as they are, right? So also things like homeless camps, crime ratings, if there's a car break-in outside, which we'll get into more of that once I get onto the forms here. Also verify the square footage and the bedroom count always, right? That should be part of your checklist. I actually have checklists over here that I want everyone to take. That is just something that you should keep right whenever you buy a property or own one. Just follow that checklist and it'll basically educate you on if you're good or not by the county. So I'll do some examples here. So if you do like a $25,000 reduction on your property taxes, it's essentially $275 a year, which over 10 years, about $3,000 you'll save. If it's a $50,000 reduction, it's $500. If you do a $100,000 reduction, it's about $1,100. So in Sacramento County, I pulled all the property tax appeal results from the last 5 years from the county, and there's an 89% win rate, just to let you know, right? So that's a pretty high win rate. The average reduction is about $256,000. So, and that's from verified data that I pulled from the county. And that's based on a tax rate of about 1%. Yeah, so in Sacramento, about 90% of all appeals, the county assessors, they don't want to go to court. So what you do is you submit a tax appeal by the deadline, which is about August till November. And then after that, 3 months after that, the county will probably come back to you. They actually want to have an informal conversation with you because they don't want to show up in court. They don't want to get dressed up and then have to talk to you in front of a board. They don't want to do that. They want to try to settle it. So you do an informal negotiation, and about 90% of those cases get settled in that informal conversation. As long as you're not asking for a stupid reduction, like 50% less, if you have the data that proves 50%, by all means, right? But as long as you're not unreasonable and you're asked, even if you have bad information, bad data, not a lot of it, they'll probably settle with you if you tell them that you're going to go to court. So even if you know you might lose, you can still do it and you can still win, because if you say, okay, we'll go to court, right? Then they'll be like, okay, hold on, before we go to court, let's figure something out here, right? So it's kind of a game. So, and the board is 3 people, right? If you do want to go to a board, you actually get a higher reduction. So at the local region here, it's a 3-person board, and they're taxpayers just like me and you, right? They're not affiliated with the government. They volunteer for this, sort of like the same reason why I started the company, because maybe they have some kind of experience with this where somebody was getting taken advantage of or something, so they wanted to step up into that position. But essentially, you'll just go up, be like, hi, my name is so-and-so. I have this property. I believe the value should be reduced by this amount because of this data, this data, this data. Here's some photos. There's a homeless camp, comparable sales, et cetera, which we'll get into some of that. So that's essentially, if you want to go to court, what that looks like. But for us, also 90% of our cases are settled informally just by an email with the county assessor. So we only go to court if we want to really push, right? If we have a good case and the assessor is not willing to budge. I would recommend always going to court if you have a multi-million-dollar property. So if you have a multi-million-dollar property and you have good information on why you should be reducing it, go to court and prove your case, and I guarantee you'll get 20, 30, 40% reductions on it. So deadlines, July 2nd is when all this stuff is essentially mailed out to you. So you should get your property tax form, whether it's your personal address or if you have an LLC or something like that, it'll get sent there, but you always want to look at them because you want to compare last year's to this year, right, on how much they're increasing your taxes on you, and make sure you're not outside of that 2% range. So November 30th is the deadline that you have to file. And in Sacramento County, they also charge a $30 filing fee, so you have to write a check out to the county to file. But yeah, just that appeal form and then that check, and then you're done. Around March, right, they'll start talking to you, messaging you, and then the appeals board is actually in July. So there's a long process, right? It's not short. It takes about 3/4 of a year to do this full thing, which sucks, but you know why they do it? Is to keep all the tax revenue they can, right? They want to keep all the tax revenue. They don't want to be giving away tax revenue. They don't want to make it easy, right? So this is why it's kind of bureaucratic. So if anybody, yes, question.
Is your county similar as far as the dates go?
Yeah, so pretty much the entire state of California, every county is about the same. It's August to November across the entire state. So those deadlines, pretty much the same, maybe a few days or a few weeks difference. If anybody in here wants to do a tax bill form, I want you guys to come up now, and we have forms up here that we want to give you, and we're going to walk through a little bit. So yeah, so we have Placer County and we have Sacramento County appeal forms. I only have like 10 Placer County, and I have Sacramento County right here.
Sacramento?
No, Solano.
Solano, yeah, we don't have Solano County, but it'll be the same thing. If you want to take one of these, you can follow along. The forms are the same across every county in the state. It's the same form, it's just a different name on it.
Follow along. Thank you.
Question. Has it ever happened that somebody filed an appeal and then the assessor says, oh, actually, we were charging you less and now we are going to charge you more?
Great question. So what he asked was, has anybody ever submitted an appeal where they were charging you less, right? And you submitted an appeal on it. You're basically asking if they raised your property taxes, right? That's never happened to us, but I'm actually going to talk about a case where that did happen, but it's a bigger case, right? The assessors don't want that publicity for homeowners and stuff like that, right? So that is not common. I don't have the data on that, but they can do it theoretically. Yes, they can. But that's why we're going to talk about what a good case is and what a not good case is. If you don't have a good case, right, it's up to you if you want to submit it, right? If you can make your case, good. But if not, I would not recommend it. So yeah, everybody has the forms now. So I want to walk you guys sort of what these forms are. And also for agents, right, your clients too, you can add a value add too by telling them about this as well. So, so on the front of it, basically it's your name, right? So it'll be your last, first, middle, and you have to fill these out to a T. If you mess up on something, they'll make it invalid as well. Like they'll just make it invalid, right? Because that same argument, they don't want to give away their tax dollars. They're looking for any reason, right, to make this form invalid. So yeah, on the first part is the applicant information. If it's a business, an LLC or something like that, you just put that information on there and you put a contact on there. And then like an agent, attorney, or relative, we would be an agent, LowPropTax, but if you have an attorney or a relative or something, you don't live here, you want them to do it, they can also sign on here. But going down to the number 3, property identification information. So it basically asks if this is a single family residence and it's your own home. So basically you would just check that box if this is your home, so check that box. If you don't, you're gonna have issues. So after that, they wanna ask the parcel number. So you'll go and you'll put your parcel number in there, which you can go on the county website or your tax bill and you can find your parcel number. So you have to put that on there. It's a long number, it's about 9 digits. And then the assessment number, you don't have to put that. The fee number, don't put that. Account number, tax bill number, you don't have to put those things. Just put the assessor parcel number. In my experience, that's best. And then the property type, if it's a single family, condo, townhouse, duplex, right? Select whatever is applicable to you. Land, vacant land. They also do personal property on here, but we don't do personal property tax appeals, but that is a thing. If you own a lot of personal property, you can also kind of do the same methodology to personal property as well. And then after that, you have the number 4, the section where it shows land. On your tax bill, it will show the land value and then it'll show the improvements value. So those are 2 separate numbers that you want to put on there. Some edge cases are if you have like a lot of nice exotic trees, right? You can put the value of that as well. Like if you have a very nice property or something and these trees are very valuable, like it's a big 40, 70-year oak tree, right? You can put the value of those things on there as well. To separate the value from like a tree versus your home and the land value. You want to try to separate it as much as possible. And then the applicant's opinion of value. This is where you just put down what you think it's worth. So you just put down, I think it's worth $500,000. And also important, if it's your own home, single family residence that you live in, the law says that the burden of proof is on the assessor to prove to you why your value is wrong. So that means you don't have to find comps, you don't have to find all these things and build this evidence package, right? But if you're an investor, it's not your primary home, the burden of proof is on you to prove your case, right? So if it's your own home, I would recommend doing tax appeals as much as you can because it's easy. They have to prove everything. They have to prove why you're wrong. They have to give you data. You can talk to them. I don't agree with this house. This house has 4 fireplaces. Mine has 3, or things like that, right? The comps that they give you. And if we look on the back, so on number 5, basically a regular assessment, which would be where they raise your assessment every year. January 1 is when they do the value. You would do that. If you just bought a property and you got that big supplemental tax bill, right? You would do that supplemental tax assessment. I always recommend doing supplemental tax bill assessment, property tax appeals, because that if you have someone that owned the property for 20 or 30 years, right? The value of that property might be $250 or $300, and then let's say you bought it at $500,000 or something like that. You got to pay the difference in that tax bill now, and that's a big bill. How many people in here has paid those big supplemental tax bills? Yeah, so you know the pain that I'm talking about right now. So you can appeal those, right? So I'd always recommend appealing those big bills. And then sometimes also, you might have unpaid tax bills too, that when you buy a property, you're buying unpaid property tax bills too. You can also, in those cases, appeal 3 or 4 years worth of unpaid property tax bills too at the same time when you buy it. That's an edge case, but I know there's a lot of investors in the room that will apply to you, where if they have a lot of unpaid taxes, right, and you're buying it at a tax sale or something, you might have to pay those taxes too, and you have the right to appeal them as well. Or like family estate changes, same thing. If they weren't paying the taxes and the county just found out about it, this is called a escape tax, where it got transferred over to the daughter or the son or something like that. They weren't paying the property taxes on it, and now the county's foreclosing on the home because they didn't pay for those taxes. That's another example where you could go and appeal those tax bills so that at closing you're not spending $30,000, $50,000 that you didn't know about, right, at closing. So question? Yeah.
For clarification, you mentioned previously that you only have 1 year to appeal, or you lose it, or something to that extent. And I just want to clarify: do you mean that there's a time frame within which you can appeal, or like right now you're referring to prior years that maybe have built up? Can you just maybe give more clarification? Like, what's the time period within which you can appeal? How far back can you go?
Yeah. So you can appeal the current value taxes, so 2026 as of January 1. You have from January until November, right, to fill out this form and mail it in. For escape taxes, right, in previous years, normally those are edge cases with the county, and they're pretty lenient as long as you're talking with them. I don't know the exact dates. I've never not been able to appeal them. But generally, you have about a 4 to 5 month time frame for escape tax bills, right? That's if you buy a property and you're paying for previous year's property tax bills on it too. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. So if someone hasn't paid their taxes for if the bill was like assessed a year or two years ago, it hasn't been paid, and then you realize that hey, they actually overassessed it. But since the time frame is like 2 years back, you can't really go back and appeal it because it's too far back. Is that what I'm saying? Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Versus if I get a supplemental assessment today for like 3 years back, I can appeal it because it was a supplemental assessment that was given to me today and that was dated today. So is it like the date of the assessment
Yes,
That matters more than the tax year?
yeah, it's the date that they mail the forms to you. So that date is what they use for everything. They track that date in their own system. So generally, like with supplemental tax bills, you get the supplemental tax bill, and then you have 30 days to go and fill out the form and submit an appeal from that date. Otherwise, you're stuck with paying it. So I get a lot of people that come to me after that deadline, and they're like, I want to appeal this, but I'm like, well, the deadline's passed. You got to pay the $9,000. I'm sorry, we can't do anything about it, you know. So, but that's why I'm here educating you guys about this, because so many people deal with this. I'm sure realtors, right? You guys see it too, where they just bought this nice house and they don't know about supplemental taxes. They didn't know the previous purchase price was for $200. Now they bought it for $700 or $900, right? Let's say, and then they get a $15,000 tax bill. They just put $60,000 or $70,000 down. I don't have the money. What do I do, right? I get that all the time, and it sucks. And if they don't know about property tax appeals, you know, it's just, it sucks. So, you had a question as well?
Yeah, can you give an example on appealing the supplemental? Like, what's that look like? Is that different than the normal tax bill?
Yeah, so supplemental tax bill, he asked if it's different than doing the normal one. It's the exact same. It's the same form that you'll use to fill out. You just click, check mark the supplemental. It's the same thing, right? Where you just argue the supplemental value is less. Even as an investor, right? Let's say you overpaid on the property. You can say that I bought it at $500,000 because of my strategic acquisition strategy determined that that is a good price to pay for it. Is it more than market rates would pay for it? Maybe, right? You can make arguments like that. You can also do things like, if the common example, right? It's worth 400 because of all of this issue, these renovations you have to do to it. You bought it for 400, and then the county comes back, they're like, no, it's worth 800. It's right next to a pond. All these other properties are worth, 1.2 or 800, right? They're going to assess it at the higher value because, once again, they don't know the damage. They don't know you had to clean the whole unit out. They didn't know all this stuff that you had to do or deal with, or there was a high vacancy in it, right? They don't know all that information. Or if it's, like a multifamily property with very bad rents, a lot of issues, tenants, permitting issues, they don't know all those things. That's why it's your job, to bring up the burden of proof if it's a home that you don't live in. But if it's a home you live in, right, they have to prove on why the value is less. You can tell them information, right? But normally they're pretty good with homeowners. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, great information, especially from, we talked a little bit about development down in Southern California, doing, large value add opportunities, right? So that has me thinking that for purchasing property, right, a lot of it has to do with the business model of what the evaluation, for the purchase price is, which is not a direct, correlation to what you're saying is the actual value of that land, right?
Yep. Yeah. Also with construction, if you guys are building anything or constructing anything, they value as of January 1 based on the permits. They kind of guess what the construction completion is, and they'll tax you accordingly. So let's say, it's 30% done, but the county says it's 60% done. They'll assess you at that 60% done of what it would be worth when it's completed. But I had all these setbacks. I had all these permitting issues. It's taken 3 or 4 months more and $50,000 more. That's another edge case, right? That you can go and be like, actually, no, it's not worth this because all of these things happen. Here's all my information. This is what's happened. Just state why, the value is not there. So going back to the form here, if you guys go down to number 6, so reason for filing appeal, the facts, right? Most of the time, you're going to say it's a decline in value. So if you bought in that 2021 to 2023 range, and the markets went down, but you bought at the top, you're going to select decline in value. Click that because we know the markets went down. Change in ownership, basically if that would be like a trust or something like that, where it changed from grandma to now son, right? That's when you would click a change in ownership. New construction, that would be for a new construction property. Calamity, So this is something close to my heart. So calamity appeals, one thing that the county does wrong, and really it's a legislative policy issue. If there's a wildfire and it burns down your property, your house, or it affects your property, they're not going to reduce the taxes unless you say something about it. So it's kind of wrong because they know where the wildfires are, they know where big weather events, and they know what properties are affected. But the law states it's your job to go and notify them, right? And if you don't, you're stuck paying the property taxes. We had a client where they're in Newcastle, fire went through, burned down the whole house. They were paying full property tax value on it. It was like $15,000 a year with no house there at all, and they were living in a temporary house that they got moved into. They had no idea that they were overpaying on the property taxes, right? Until someone told them what we do. We looked at it, was like, what? You guys are paying $15,000 with no house? You know, that's a calamity appeal, and you have up to 1 year from the date of when it happens. So also, if you buy a fire damaged property or a water damaged property, right, that would be a calamity appeal. You can do a property tax appeal from 1 year from that date. So if you buy a property, let's say a lot of damage, right, insurance, they don't want to pay for it or do it, and then you purchase the property, you have 1 year to go and appeal the value, because they're still going to be valuing it at whatever the price may be, right? Even though you buy it for $200, they're still valuing it at $600, right? Unless you do that property tax appeal. So, and then business personal property fixtures, we're not going to be going over that. Penalty assessment, not going over that, doesn't apply. Appeal after an audit, not going over that. So yeah, basically just the number A, decline in value, that would be a majority for everybody in here. You'll just select decline in value. And then after that, number 7, written findings of facts. That's basically where you want the county to give you their data on how they proved what the value is. Normally they charge $250 for that. I don't recommend you ever pay for that unless it's a multi-million dollar property. So we're talking $1.5 million more. Always pay for it because you want proof on how they're valuing that property, and at that value, you know, you're paying so much in taxes where it makes sense to do that. And then number 8, this application is designated as a claim for a refund. Always select yes, because if you select no, even if you get a reduction, you don't get any money. You're giving it back to them. I don't know why they put that on there. I have no idea. Maybe for you to make another mistake, but always put yes on there. So, and then the last part, you have to sign in a blue pen. Why do you have to sign in a blue pen? You know, if you sign a black pen, guess what? Invalid. You know, like this is across the entire country. It's the same thing. So, but yeah, you'd basically just sign your name, print, and then at the bottom, you'll basically just select, you know, owner, agent, attorney, spouse, etc., etc. And then submit your form, and you write out a check to like County of Placer for property tax appeal under my name or my LLC, right? And then you just submit it. So that's pretty much this entire appeal form and all the things you have to do on it. You don't have to submit evidence with this form, right? So all you have to do is just fill it out and submit it. You don't have to go do comps or anything like this or submit it with it. That will be later around the March, April, May timeframe is whenever you'll go and you'll submit that. So because they'll email you. If they don't email you, email them. Because if you don't talk to them, they're going to say, oh, I tried to reach out to you, you didn't respond, and guess what? Invalid. So they're going to basically just make it invalid for you, right? So it's a game, you know, and you got to play it. So yeah, basically what you need to win. So we'll talk a little bit about our evidence package. I'll try to roll through this pretty quick. You want 3 to 5 comparable sales, 3 minimum. You always want powers of 3. And then you also, your comparable sales have to be within 30 days plus or minus of January 1. So up till March 30th, or you can go back to October 30th, right? So you have about 6 months from January 1 total time frame. Yeah, you want like records, you want not screenshots of stuff on Zillow, you actually want the sold date and the sold property and what it was sold for. So that's a good example. You don't just want like a screenshot of a property that's for sale. You can't use that. So it has to be a sold property that's actually, it was sold already. And then another strategy is you want to provide one good comp and one bad comp, or two bad comps and one good comp. So that's kind of a strategy too. You don't want to put all three bad comps, you know, because they're going to raise an eyebrow to it. And then, yeah, you want adjustments, right, that are backed by data. If you have a roof that you have to go and repair, and you say, oh, it's $100,000 to replace this roof when we know it's actually maybe 30 or 40, don't say 100. You know, just don't say anything that's unreasonable, because they know the prices of everything. They build adjustments and stuff like that. So if you have contractor estimates or actually stuff that you paid, or you got a contractor or somebody that told you what it would cost, right, you can use that. Just my advice would be not to use anything that's not warranted. Hello? Okay. And then, yeah, photos, right? You want photos of it. If the property has mold, if it has a crack, or if it has an irrigation system that is no longer working, breaking, erosion, a high voltage power line nearby, if there is a road that is, let's say fast cars are driving by it all the time, just take a photo of the road, the speed limits, and explain, hey, the speed limit here is 35, but everybody goes 60. You know, like, this is dangerous, you know, and I don't believe my property should be worth XYZ because of all this fast car. Somebody's going to get hurt eventually, right? A buyer is not going to want to live here because of this traffic, you know, that's going on. Also, like construction, if you own a home that's on a street and now there's a lot of construction going on, do a tax bill. You know, that's instantly 10% off the value right there. Air quality issues. If you live next to an industrial area, also with rental property, stuff like that, tenants. If you're next to some kind of environmental industry place and there's some kind of concern that our tenants are telling you, property tax bill, you know. So let's skip through this. This is a good example. This is a current case of a luxury property that we're doing in Kansas. So if you'll see all this stuff, this is from the Planning Commission, right? So they're making all these adjustments. They're widening the roads, right? So that would affect the value. Widening roads means more crime, more potential for accidents, more potential for pollution, more potential for 100 other things, right? So we're doing a tax bill on a property that's out in Kansas because they're changing the road from a 2-lane to a 4-lane. This is a luxury property where that adjustment in the lane length, right, would definitely affect the value of that property. It's not worth as much anymore. Normally luxury properties, they're more secluded, you know, they're in a nice area, you don't have to deal with a lot of issues like that. So this is an example of, like, if the Planning Commission comes out, Transportation Commission comes out, and they say they're doing all these things, you can use that as data as well. So what actually wins cases? Yeah, that Proposition 8 decline in value. If you go and you do a tax appeal, you have to do it again the next year. Otherwise, they're going to raise your value again. So Proposition 8 basically is where you take it from that Prop 13 value of 500 and you get it down to 400, let's say. Well, the next year, they're going to raise that back up to 500 or more, and it's your job to do an appeal the next year. So this is kind of a battle that you have to fight. But if you get a good system, right, after you do this the first time, it might take you 10 minutes to do it every single year moving forward. So it's a good worth of time based on the values I showed you and how many thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands you can save on your whole portfolio over time. The number one denial is not showing up. So not showing up, not responding to them. So here's an example of an appeal package. So basically you have your assessed value, you have the market value, the comps, the overassessment amount, the tax savings. I just put that up there for you guys. But here's the comp, right? White Ranch, these are real comps here. So you put the sold date, right? So January, September, October, right? Within that 3-month-ish time frame. And then you have the amount. And then what we did is we adjusted the amounts on this one. You don't have to adjust the amounts. And then evidence that we put was on the subject property. It had foundation cracks, roof damage, and the HVAC was at the end of its life. It needed to replace, right? That HVAC is going to cost $30,000, so we reduced that as well. There was noise from a nearby temple. There was a lot of drainage and sewer backup issues. and then the condition was rated at a fair condition when they bought it. So that's an example of some evidence, some comps, and basically what a strong case would look like. It's not intense, you know, you don't need a lot of stuff, just good information. Question?
When you adjust the value for the comps, so if you have 770 is the sold, right, price?
Yep.
Like on the first comp, let's say. And then you adjust it to 549. Is that the adjustment for that comp, or what is that adjusted? How do you come up with that adjusted value?
Yeah, so the adjustment is for the comp, basically because of these issues, what that property would be worth if it had those issues. So
Okay, gotcha.
we made
So
those
you're
adjustments
taking
on
back
it.
the comp, but then you're adjusting to the condition of your property. Okay.
Correct, yeah. I didn't show all the adjustments and how we did it because that's a lot more advanced. But basically, yeah, we just reduced the value of those properties based on the same condition of the subject property.
So you're saying if that was my property with all these issues, that's what it would have sold for, and that's why the adjustments are different for each comp because you're taking the initial sold value as the base value, right?
Correct, yes.
So is that what you're submitting to the appeals board?
The appeals board, yes. Yeah, so if we show up in court, I'm gonna bring this up and I'm gonna show some photos of the damage and stuff like that. I'm gonna give them a packet. Here you go, here you go, here you go. This is my case. This is why I think it's worth this because of these issues. And now we talk about it.
Is that only in court or is that in the first meeting with your assessor?
First meeting, you wanna bring that up too. So you wanna submit
So
that.
Either way, you're bringing this material to your one-on-one meeting with the assessor and or if you go to court.
Correct, yeah. And this information can change. So if you speak with the assessor, right, and you're like, okay, they're not working with me, I want to do a further reduction, you can spend more time and build a better case and show different information at your board hearing. So you can have a better case, yes.
What percentage of these appeals end up in court, like a court?
10%. So Sacramento County, I believe my data showed 88% are settled at stipulation. The other ones is about 12-11% for Sacramento County, but across the nation, it's about the same, 10% actually go to court. Because the county assessor wants to work as hard as possible to not go to court. They only have a 5-man team. They don't want to go to court, you know, for more than 2 or 3 months. So they want to try to settle as much as they can because they're not getting more funding. They're not going to go get another person, right? And they know this. That's why they want to work with you as much as possible. Yeah, so these are some different angles I brought up for you guys. So like flippers, you want to document your pre-rehab conditions with photos and after you renovate as well. This is your evidence of the property. You want every single thing that looks as bad as absolutely possible, you want to take a photo of it because that's your evidence. For commercial, we're not talking about commercial, but commercial is the income approach. So doing cap rates, finding out how your property is comparing to other properties. Do you have high vacancy rate compared to other properties? So you want to look at those things or things that's affecting your value. If you have a high loan, you know, a 6.5% loan versus a property that maybe has a 4.5% loan, you can use that. And then rental owners, yes, much of the same other stuff. You just want to find anything and everything that affects the property value that you can use. Yes.
Yeah.
Bad tenants.
Now that you mention it, for these appeals, what percentage do you think of the appeals are more successful? Residential properties where it's driven on comps, or commercial where it's more income-based appraising?
Yeah, so good question. Based on our data that we pulled, we've actually pulled that data to find that out for ourselves. Commercial property tax appeals are more successful with higher amounts per dollar. So commercial is where the money is. And I'll get to some of them, like the Tahoe ski resorts, right? They're doing property tax appeals. The counties are trying to bring those tax values up to $200-300 million, and they have full tax firms that are keeping them at 160, and they're making a spread of like $100 million in property taxes there. But these commercial buildings are a lot where the county just tries to gyp you as much as possible because they know you're really busy, you know, and you don't think of this, right? But yeah, vacancy rates, your income cap rates, all very important for commercial. So this is basically the end of the presentation. This is what we offer. So for homeowners or single property, we just do a flat fee. If it's more than that, a portfolio, it's actually free to you. We do based on commission. So if we save you $1, we get 30 cents of it basically. So across the entire portfolios, right, doesn't cost anything to you. We're appealing the last year's tax value, and then you just get a refund check in the mail, and then we get our commission based out of that. So it's a pretty easy model that we do. We're also looking to work with property managers, realtors, title companies. We're trying to integrate with them. So that's a little bit about our company. We're in several states. We're featured in Comstock for the Startup of the Month in February. We're part of a bunch of different member associations as well. And yeah, this is essentially the end of my presentation. I hope this was valuable. I hope that everybody walks out of here a little bit better and you know how to do this as well, or tell your friends, right? I guarantee all of you will have friends that have property tax concerns, and now you can be that expert that can go and talk to them. Hey, I've actually went to a workshop and I know a little bit about this and how to do it and stuff like that. And then we have some of our links up here again, like our LinkedIn, my LinkedIn page, right? And also our website. So yeah, thank you guys. Hope this was helpful. Questions? Yeah.
I got an example. So, question with an example. So, a condo was purchased last year, March or April. It was repaired, so it was purchased once around 160. It was sold in September for 230. The prior assessed value was under 160, so it was assessed low. And so after the sale, like a number of months later, this was probably like a flip that I did. A couple months ago, I received a supplemental assessment that goes back to the period that our company owned the property, and they're assessing it at 230. So from the date that it was purchased, they say it was not 230, but 220 is what their supplemental assessment is. And so they're sending a bill. So I guess two questions. One is, since we don't own the property at all by now, right? Do they even have any kind of jurisdiction, or can they pull that money out of us somehow? That's one question. But then the second question is, I'm assuming that can be appealed. Like if we still own it, we can appeal it. I guess my first question is, should I even care in that situation?
Yeah, so you definitely should care, because they'll put a lien out. They'll go and, it goes to an outside firm, and then you're going to get an attorney firm that's like, hey, whatever you owe plus 30% interest, right? So definitely pay that. So you got a supplemental tax bill for the time that you own the property, and they're valuing it more than what you bought it at, and you have a supplemental tax bill. When was that supplemental tax bill mailed? Do you know the date? Because like I said, you have 30 days, right, to get on that. Otherwise, you got to pay it. In your case, since you went and you rehabbed it, right, and you resold it, all your evidence is right there, everything that you did. So you should use all that and then go and appeal it. Because otherwise, if you're outside that 30-day timeline, then you're screwed. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's 30 days from the date of the notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might be different. Some are 60. Look at your notice. It should say on there. Or if you have a question, just call the county assessor. Be like, hey, my name is XX. This is my property. I'm trying to get some information. So they'll work with you. Any other questions? Examples? Yep.
Yeah, follow to his question a little bit, but he's out of most of our league. So for us more humble people, that in-between question, you kind of said on question 3, if you don't have if it's not your primary property, that's a problem, you said. So for most of us, you bought a property as a second home, but then became a rental, right? But you still think you're being overcharged in your new assessment that happened after you purchased it. Whether it's assessed as personal property or commercial, can you still have a case if it's that kind of in-between type of property, or you've converted it to a commercial property, but you bought it as a second family residence or second home?
Yeah, so that's a more complicated case,
Right,
right? Because now we're talking about zoning.
Gray areas kind of
Yeah, so now we're talking about zoning. With something like that, that's when I would consult with a tax attorney, a tax firm, right? With something like that, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of nuance and a lot of laws and a lot of jurisdictional type things, right? Where you have to have experience to be able to go and appeal that. I don't know your specific case, but whenever you change it from a single family residence into like a commercial property, there's timelines, all the construction, right? The rehab, the zoning, all those things, the timelines. It's very complicated essentially. So that's the best answer that I can give you for that one.
Talk to you later. Thank
Yep.
you.
very good information. I didn't know that we could appeal or do an appeal to a government agency. I never knew until today. And I just felt that, okay, we just have to pay the taxes when we get a bill. And most people, I think, have an escrow, and the bank just pays it, and then
Yep.
every year I get an escrow analysis, and the bank says, okay, the tax went up, so
Yep.
this is the shortage amount, and now your tax bill is this.
Yep. That's how they make it disappear, right? To where you just pay it, you know. That $259 billion number, you're one of them.
So I bought my primary residence in 2011, which was GFC time.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned that they can only raise 2% every year, but right now I bought it for 400, and now they are assessing for 850.
Did you pull any permits? If you
No.
pull a permit,
I didn't pull any.
they will
permit.
reassess your value. So that's also another snippet. Never pull a permit unless you absolutely have to. If you pull a permit, your $400,000 base is now $800,000 or whatever it may be, right? So try not to pull permits unless you absolutely have to, okay?
The only permits we pulled because we bought it from the builder, so they didn't have backyard done, so we did the backyard.
Yeah, so your value was, you bought it for 4 and now it's worth 8 and it's only been 10 years. That sounds definitely outside of 2% a year, Prop 13. So I'll investigate that and see why the value has been raised at so much. That might be an error on their part, right, where their system messed up or something. So I would go and look at your tax bills from the past and then see if it's within Prop 13. Melrose rate is different. That's for infrastructure. That might be another 2 to 5% or something per year, but yeah, I'll just look into that.
So the only permits we have is for backyard and the solar.
Yeah. Go and find where they did that jump, you know, that jump in your assessed value, and then start with there and see what essentially is going on with your tax rate if they increased it outside those thresholds.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to work with you, you have like per property and like per portfolio. And so when it comes to per portfolio, is that like one LLC or is that, one client? Because like we have multiple LLCs per client. Is it like, so I'm assuming it's the latter where it's one, person, individual, they have multiple properties. So you're doing this, we're not charging anything up front, it's just a commission base. And then just like a use case, let's just say I had a supplemental tax bill last year, $50,000. And then what was your fee from that? Or how would that work?
Yeah, our fee would just be 30% of what we save you. So if we don't save you anything, we don't get paid anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
So it is like
And-
true contingency.
yeah, it's true contingency, and also like we're working with property managers where we have a property manager with 300 different clients, 300 different units, 200 different LLCs. We have a portal that's for the property manager to see the whole portfolio of what we can save their clients. And then we have all the individual owners that have their own accounts. We only have them make an account if our system says that we can save them money, essentially. So that's with our bigger portfolio, right, where we have an account manager, and then we have all the owners individually, right, where they have all their own accounts underneath that portfolio manager.
So I have rental properties in Birmingham, Alabama. Do you guys work there?
Yeah, Alabama is one of the states we service. So we're in Alabama, Texas, Michigan, Missouri, Illinois, California, and then Kansas. And I might be forgetting one or two.
So I actually contacted an attorney to look at my property tax bill because when I bought the property, the company told me that according to the tax record, the property tax is $500 and some change. But when I closed next year, my bill was like $1,400. And when I had an attorney, they looked into it and they said, because it's not your primary residence, it's an investment property. Is that different in those states?
Yeah, so in other states as well, great question, right? So in other states, you're taxed differently if it's investment property versus a primary residence. So primary residence might have a 1% tax rate, but if it's investment property, it might have a 6% tax rate, right? So it's not like here in California where it's the same. In other states, many other states, it's very different where you have a higher tax rate. You're taxed higher per dollar of value versus a primary residence. So that might be an example of what they found and why they stated that. And I hope you didn't spend $500 on a consultation fee with them. So, okay, cool. Any other questions, edge cases? Yep.
Just real quick, David. We've known each other for a long time. Not sure he's still going to claim he's a friend, but we have known each other since before you did this business, right? Two quick points I want to make that are kind of important. If it's a bigger city like New York or Miami or San Francisco or Houston, the county's probably going to be a little bit more combative. But if they're smaller counties like Placer or any of the other smaller counties, you can pretty much, there's only 3 people in that office. Like Matt Maynard is a friend of mine. So smaller counties are actually they want your help. And when I talked to Matt, matter of fact, Matt was speaking at our Rotary Club, Aaron's also my Rotary Club. And when I had lunch with him, and David texted me, hey, ask Matt this. So Matt was happy to have David doing what he's going to do. And let me quickly explain why they're not.
Who's Matt?
Matt Maynard is the county assessor for Placer County. Because across the nation, most of the property lines are drawn in the 1800s. So since there's only a few people in his department, he has interns going out, because Placer goes up to like halfway around Lake Tahoe. Like there's literally like 176,000 properties, right? And there's 3 people in the office. So when they're doing property lines, it's like they're reading this writing from a person, like go from this rock to that tree this many paces. So they're dealing with that kind of information, and they have to digitize it. So when David comes property, or he's helping people bring their information forward, that's more data he can put into his database. He told me to tell you, thank you, right? So he's appreciative, and a lot of the smaller counties' offices, including the assessors, are actually appreciative when you can give them information. They do not have time. They have drones and more digitized stuff now, but they know it's not completely accurate, so they depend on some of you for your help. And he said he'd love to have lunch with you anytime. I've assessed tens of thousands of properties across the nation when I was coaching for a wholesale business, plus for ourselves. So I've been inside county offices across the nation, and most of the time they're just super friendly people. Like, it's not hard. I did many times call up whoever I needed to call up in the county, and they would tell me anything. They're very friendly, except in the much larger cities. So if you are gonna appeal, don't worry about, I appealed, now they're mad at me, and they're gonna try and get me some other way. That is not how it works, except in New York. That's a true story. But everyone else, they're happy. If anything else, you talk to your neighbors and see what they've got going on too, because we could use the information. I just wanted to share that. Oh, and also, where did he go? Yeah, you stepped out. So I know a couple of managers, property managers, and we're trying to get together with lunch with you as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, so assessors, right, they're your friends. The policy is not your friend. It's the technology that they use is so old, right? So I've had the same conversation with other assessors. They like people like me that go and do this because we make it easier for them, right? And they don't like to be the bad guy, but it's the system that they use why they get painted to be the bad guy. So, question?
I just kind of wanted to actually continue on what Kevin's point was, and what your point just was. I have a very good friend in the assessor's office, Sac County, and he has worked there. He's a private appraiser and worked for an AMC, an appraisal management company, as a manager for many years leading up to it. So he's worked there for like 10 months. I started in residential, and he was recently promoted into commercial. But he's like my best friend and my neighbor, and we talk about work all the time. He actually has done probably 200 appraisals for me in my wholesale business. But his report on that culture and with the ideology of the assessor's office is the taxpayer's friend. They want more information. They want to find a way for the taxpayer to be right. A lot of the time they're dealing with people who want a $4,000 reduction in their assessment to save them a total of $1.46 in tax last year's taxes, which is bogging things down, right? So, but the culture in these offices is just that, though. It's really to help. How can we make this work for the taxpayer? How can we prove? How can they be proven right in a lot of ways? So if you're thinking this is like a totally an uphill battle and all that, it's actually a downhill battle with the wind at your back when you actually are thinking about maybe making an appeal. So, anyway, just tag it on to that.
Yeah, their income is not dependent on how much they're helping bring in. Matter of fact, Nat said that they Classic County, they gave back 800 million in reductions, and they were happy to do that. Again, another way, they give billions of dollars in taxes, including commercial. So he actually said, I'm happy to. If I could give more, I'd fine. Like, their income is not personally attached to anything. Matter of fact, they get bonuses the more work they do when they can return to the taxpayer, just what Mitch was saying.
Yeah, that's true. They literally don't have a big red thermometer in their office seeing how long they can hold on to our tax dollars. I know that for a fact.
Except in New York.
Yeah.
You know, we'll come to Florida to get it.
All right. Any more?
We'll go all the way to Florida to get it.
Any more questions? All right.
Cool.
Well, then we'll wrap it up. David, thank you so much. Give you a big round of applause.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Let's give him a round of applause as well for setting this up.
Thank you for coming out. We're just going to have networking, and at some point they're going to ask us to come downstairs so they can clean up here. Next month, I'm actually going to be gone for second half of May to second half of June. So I'm going to try to do a collaborative meetup with Bobby's group. If they're going to be doing a meetup, if not, we might just skip me and do a pause. Yeah. Sorry. Speaking of meetups in June, I'm Mitch Craighead, president of NorCal REI, and I also do some REI Connect in Roosevelt. I am thinking about putting together something at the Red Barn in Rockland, so on that side of town, a bigger event in June. Not just thinking about it; it's almost fully booked. So I'm excited about that. Those of you who are on our lists and things, please keep an eye out for that. So it'll be a great opportunity for, in absence of Sergey being out of town, have a great trip with friends. Thank you. Yeah, we'll have some other offerings in June. Okay, awesome, great. And just make sure to scan the QR code. I'll send out, like I said, an email with everyone's contact info, link to the video.